Hello YouTube and welcome to the next routes learning video. On this video I'm going to be driving a short run along the North Somerset Railway add-on between Radstock and Frome Market, which is a distance of around 7¼ miles. The scenario that I'm using is one which comes with the route called Morning Commute, and along the way we will be calling at Kilmersdon, Mells Road, Mels, Flowers Farm, and finally Frome Market. Our attraction for the journey today is a Class 117 first generation diesel multiple unit. The Class 117 was in service between 1959 and 2000 and was manufactured by the Pressed Steel Company, with a total of 123 cars being produced. They have a maximum speed of 70 miles per hour, with two 150 horsepower engines per power car, and on each 3-coach unit there are 2 power cars, for a total power output of 600 horsepower. Once in the cab of the Class 117, there's just a couple of things that I need to do to set up for departure. So the first thing I'm going to do now is just put the reversing handle into the forward position, and then I'm going to press and hold Shift and E to move the gear handle up to Gear 1, ready for departure. As with nearly all first generation diesel multiple units in the UK, the transmission on this unit is manual, so you do need to manually control the gears, and so you'll be in Gear 1 up to around 13 to 14 miles per hour, and then you need to change up to Gear 2 to around 25 miles per hour, then up to Gear 3 to around 40 miles per hour, and then finally for any speeds above 40 miles per hour, you would then put the unit into Gear 4. I must also state that you must put the gear handle into Gear 4 whenever you're allowing the unit to coast with the power off, even if you're doing below 40 miles per hour. Now let's just have a quick look at the controls here from over on the left over to the right. So the first control we've got down here is the power handle, which has 4 notches of power, and then just to the right of that we've got the speedometer, which you can see measured in miles per hour, though due to the angle it is positioned in relation to the driver in this particular unit, I actually find the speedometer slightly difficult to read. Just to the right of that we've got the tachometer, which you can see with the needle, the orange needle, currently pointing to the bottom and swinging slightly. So this indicates really when you need to change gear, and so as I accelerate away from a particular stop, I will then put the power up until the tachometer needle goes into the second triangle you can see there on the right hand side, and as it reaches that you then need to shut off the power completely, wait until the tachometer needle has fallen to the position that it's in now, and then change up the gear, wait a second or two, and reapply power. Just in front of us there we've got the AWS reset button, and then just above that to the right hand side you can see there the brake gauges. So the main gauges there are the 2 needles pointing downwards. As you release the brakes, the 2 needles then start to point upwards, and the higher the needles are pointing, then the more the brakes are released, and of course when the needles are pointing all of the way to the bottom, then the brakes are fully applied. The brakes on this unit operate very much like the brakes on a steam locomotive, because it does have vacuum braking, so when you move the brake handle it doesn't control how hard the brakes are applied, but instead how quickly they're applied, and you need to then move the brake handle back to the hold position to hold the brake pressure at the position that you would like it to be. Now just to have a look quickly over here at the right hand side of the cab, you can see the brake handle there in front of us that I was just operating, so the release position is there, and then it's in the hold position, and then you've got the apply position, and then move it back to hold. The further that you move the brake handle into the apply position, then the quicker the brakes will apply. Just to the right hand side there you can see a wheel, which is actually the handbrake, although we won't need to use that at any point on this journey today. The final control to consider is the horn control, which is just down here. I do have the Armstrong Powerhouse sound pack installed, so I do have a 2-tone horn control with the spacebar and the B key. So now that we've had a look around the cab, let's just take another quick look at the outside of the train, and then I'm going to move forward and drive into Radstock Station, which is just ahead of us, ready for departure towards Frome Market. Departing towards Radstock station, you can see the platform just ahead, and at this point the speed limit is 15 miles per hour, though I'm not going to allow the train to go above that at this point. I'm just now going to put the gear handle into gear 4 for a moment, as I need to allow the train to coast. And then as we slow down a bit more, I'm going to put the gear handle into the neutral position, just to allow us to coast for the final few miles per hour down to being stopped. Now put the gear handle into the neutral position and release the brakes, just to allow the train to just now crawl towards the end of the platform. You can see an S sign just coming up on the left hand side here, which is the stopping point for this unit. And so we should now be stopping in just about the right place. And now I'm just going to pan to a couple of external shots of the unit and then jump into the back cab, ready for departure towards Frome Market. Departing Radstock, the starting speed limit is 15 miles per hour, and at this point we've got around 1 1/3 miles to go to our next stop, which is Kilmersdon. As we're now getting up towards 15 miles per hour, in a moment I'm just going to cut off the power and then change up to gear 2, ready for accelerating to the new speed limit, which is just coming into force here, of 25 miles per hour. We can accelerate towards 25 miles per hour just before reaching this ground signal here on the left hand side. So now going up to full power to accelerate up towards that now. We're now reaching 25 miles per hour, so I'm just going to cut the power back to idle once again and then change up to gear 3, ready for this new increase in the speed limit, which has just come into force up to 40 miles per hour. At the 40 mile per hour speed post, we then had 1 mile to go to our stop, and at this point we're now climbing on a 1 in 77 uphill gradients, which is severely affecting our ability to accelerate. The AWS ramp that we just crossed is for the opposite direction, as indicated by the small post on the left hand side with the white diagonal cross in it. So whenever you see that sign after an AWS warning, it means that the AWS warning does not apply in your direction. What I'm looking out for now is some cables going across the tracks between a right and left hand curve, and at that point we've then got just over 1/3 of a mile to go to our stop. Now that we've reached 40 miles per hour, I've just put the power handle back into the idle position, and I'm just going to step up to gear 4 and just give us a couple of notches of power at this point, just to try and ensure that we don't lose too much speed. So we're just passing under the cables which I mentioned, with around 1/3 of a mile to go. And I'm now looking out for some road signs on the right hand side, which is roughly the area of the braking point for our stop. You can now see the road signs just coming up there, so I've just put the power into idle and now going to start applying the brakes to bring our speed down. The platforms on this route are quite short, so you do have to enter them slowly to ensure that you can stop in the right place, which is going to be right at the end of the platform. Now just putting the gear handle back into the neutral position at this point. Just gradually bringing us to a gentle stop by the 2-car stop sign. And we should now be stopped in just about the right place. Departing from Kilmersdon, the starting speed limit is 40 miles per hour, and at this point we've got around 1¼ miles to go to our next stop, which is Mells Road. We are also still going up on a 1 in 77 uphill gradient, which will continue to affect our ability to accelerate. It's something that I slightly forgot about as we were stopping there at Kilmersdon station, so there was a very slight rollback just after I stopped before I got the brakes back on full, which is something you should always try and avoid when driving trains. What I'm looking out for now is milepost 6 on the left hand side, and as we pass that milepost we've then got around 3/4 of a mile to go to Mells Road station. We're now passing a permanent distance signal warning with an AWS warning there, so I've just shut off the power. I've increased the gear up to gear 4 because we're coasting for a moment. I'm now applying the brakes to drive with caution as I believe the signal might be before the next platform. And with a fixed distance signal board you have to drive assuming that the next home signal is displaying a red or stop aspect until you can see otherwise. I can now see that the home signal ahead is off, so I am cleared to proceed into the station. At this point I now need to step down a couple of gears just to give us some power to ensure that I can make it up this bit of hill into Mells Road station. And you can see the platforms at the station coming up just ahead. Now shutting off the power once again, and we're now going to lose a little bit of speed as we head towards the platform. I'm going to apply the brakes just before entering the platform to try and bring us to a smooth stop. The gradient has now levelled out just here, so there's no more uphill gradients affecting our ability to accelerate, and also it means that we won't be slowing down quite as quick as we would have been before. We should now be stopped in just about the right place. Departing Mells Road, the starting speed limit is still 40 miles per hour, and at this point we've got around 1 mile to go to our next stop, which is Mels. You can already see straight away now that with the level gradient that we're now on, the acceleration rate of this unit is considerably better than it was at the start of this journey. The speed limit is now going up to 50 miles per hour, and at this point we've got around 2/3 of a mile to go to our next stop. I'm now idling the power at this point at around 40 miles per hour. As we pass this signal, we've got around half a mile to go to our stop. And what I'm looking out for now is a square board, which we're going to be seeing on the left-hand side. As we reach the rear of that square board, that's roughly the braking point for Mells Station. So it looks like it's going to be this next board just coming up now. So we're now just passing the square board and now going to start applying the brakes for our stop. At the last stop, I noticed I did stop slightly too hard at the end there, so I'm going to try and be a bit more careful this time and try and stop a bit more gently than I did at Mells Road. Now releasing the brakes at around 10 miles per hour, and I'm just going to allow the train to coast into the platform. Once again, we do need to stop at the end of the platform, though unlike at our first stop at Kilmersdon, I do believe that this station will actually fit a full 3-coach train. Now putting the gear handle into the neutral position, just bringing our speed down nicely. Now doing around 5 miles per hour. You can now see there is a 3-car stop sign just there, so I'm going to aim to stop close to that. And we should now be stopping in just about the right place. Departing Mels, the starting speed limit is 50 miles per hour, though it is very soon going down to 40 miles per hour, so we won't be able to get up to 50 along this section. At this point we've got around 1 mile to go to our next stop, which is Flowers Farm. I'm just going to accelerate up towards 25 miles per hour, just cut off the power for a moment because I was unsure what I needed to do. But now I need to accelerate up to just around 25, and now that we're at 25 miles per hour, I'm just going to go straight up to gear 4 and allow the train to coast, as we're just about to start on a gradient going downhill as steep as 1 in 48, which will cause the unit to accelerate up towards 40 miles per hour. So we're now starting on the downhill gradient, and if you now watch the speedometer, you're going to start seeing the needle climbing fairly quickly. A 1 in 48 gradient in American terms I think is a 2% grade, which is certainly quite steep, and already we're going up from 25 towards 30 miles per hour, and we're accelerating up beyond that. We've now got a fixed distance signal board coming up, which is the next landmark. I'm going to start applying the brakes for our stop shortly after this board. I'm going to need to brake a little bit harder than usual due to the downward gradient, which will affect our ability to brake and slow down quickly. So I've now made the brake application to start bringing our speed off. Can now see the platform coming up just ahead, so I'm just going to start reapplying the brakes again a bit harder to ensure that we are losing enough speed. Don't really want to enter the platform any faster than 10 to 15 miles per hour. Here at Flowers Farm Station, I need to aim to stop at the 3-car stop sign, which is at the end of the platform. Just gradually releasing the brakes here to ensure that we don't end up stopping too early. You can now see the 3-car sign just coming up. I'm now just going to put the gear into neutral as we're getting closer to stopping. And we should now be stopping in just about the right place. Departing from Flowers Farm, the starting speed limit is 40 miles per hour, and we've got around 2¾ miles to go to our next and final stop, which is Frome Market. At this first gear change now, I've just idled the power and I'm going straight up to gear 4. I'm just going to allow the train to coast once again due to the steep downward gradient. So the train is just going to gradually pick up speed up towards 40 miles per hour now. We've just passed the Morpeth board warning for an upcoming 20 mile per hour speed restriction, so I do need to bear that in mind. And I need to apply the brakes for the approaching 20 mile per hour speed limit just before we get to the next left-hand curve. As you can see, the train's accelerated nicely and we're now doing around 35 miles per hour. At this point I'm now going to start applying the brakes for the upcoming 20 speed restriction now that we're coming up on this left-hand curve just here. The brakes are now on to slow us down, should slow us down in time at this point. I can now see the 20 mile per hour speed post just coming up, so I'm just going to apply the brakes a little harder. Due to the downhill gradient, you do need to brake a little bit harder than you usually would at this point. I'm going to release the brakes just a little bit below 20 now to try and ensure that we don't coast above the speed limit, though in a moment the gradient is levelling out just around the area of this signal. Again, we're about to start going downhill just before this junction coming up, as steep as 1 in 60, and I'm once again going to need to have to use the brakes if necessary to control the speed. In fact I am, as we're already doing 20 miles per hour at this point. I've just applied the brakes lightly and it looks like it is holding us at around 20, but we might be slowing down just slightly here now, so I will release the brakes in a moment if I need to. The speed limit is now going up to 40 miles per hour, and so what I'm going to do here is once again release the brakes and then just allow the train to coast up to speed. So I've allowed us to slow down slightly more than I needed to there, and we've actually slowed down to around 15 miles per hour, though now at this point the train is going to start coasting back up towards the speed limit once again. As you can see, we are slowly gathering speed now, and we're picking up speed towards 30 miles per hour. On this next right-hand curve just here, the gradient will go up very briefly before then going down again as steep as 1 in 82. I've just continued to allow the train to coast here as we're going uphill due to the downhill gradient coming up straight afterwards. So now we're just about to start going down again and the train should gather a little bit more speed. The gradient now is just about to level out, so I'm going to need to give this 1 to 2 notches of power to try and maintain the speed along here. And the next landmark I'm looking out for is the waterworks or sewage works on the right hand side. At that point we've then got half a mile to go to Frome Market station. And now giving us some power just to ensure that we don't lose too much speed along here, whilst still looking out for the sewage works. In fact, it looks like I can just see them now through the trees. Now, so you can see the waterworks now on the right hand side. Coming up at the next signal, we've then got around 1/3 of a mile to go, and I'm going to apply the brakes at the left curve just after the next signal. At this point, I'm now just going to allow the train to continue to coast. We won't need any more power now between here and Frome Market Station. We're now coming up on the left-hand curve immediately after the signal, which is the braking point for our stop. Probably brake slightly too hard there. In fact, I'm just cutting the braking back a little. You can now see the platform coming up just ahead. I'm cutting the braking back a little bit more. I don't want to enter the platform any faster than 15 to 20 miles per hour. Closer to 15 would actually be better, so I'm just going to apply the brakes a little bit more once again. We're now down to 15 miles per hour, and I'm just releasing the brakes a little bit. We're now going to be entering the platform at around 10 miles per hour. So if I now just release the brakes fully for a brief moment, it's going to allow the train to coast towards the end of the platform. And in a moment, I'm also going to put the gear handle into the neutral position. I'm aiming to stop here just a little bit before this bridge just coming up. Braking slightly too hard, so I just pulled the braking back, and we should now be stopped in about the right place. Thank you very much for watching this video. I really do hope that you have enjoyed it. Please don't forget that for the latest channel updates, you can find me on Facebook, and the link to my Facebook page is in the description of this video. Once again, thank you for watching.